Hello and welcome to the National Office of the Catholic Daughters of the Americas in New York City. We're happy to bring you the first in a series of presentations designed to give you the tools to help state officers, district deputies, state representatives, and local court officers to function efficiently, effectively, and within the guidelines required by the national bylaws. This first presentation will assist you in conducting a local court financial review. Our presenter today is Olga Samaniego from El Paso, Texas.
Hello, I'm Olga Samaniego, and I'm happy to be here with you today to discuss how to conduct a financial review. When a state regent asks somebody to accept the position of district deputy, or when somebody is asked to run for office in her local court, one of the reasons that women hesitate to accept any of those positions is knowing that they will have to participate in a financial review, or even, as in the case of the district deputy, conduct the financial review. So my goal here today is to answer all of your frequently asked questions and to give you a simple process for conducting that review so that you will feel well equipped to go out and perform these duties when you are asked to do so. So, let's start at the very beginning. As you know, our bylaws mandate that we conduct financial reviews. Some people ask, well, why do we have to do that? We need to keep in mind that Catholic Daughters of the Americas is a 501c3 tax-exempt organization. Because of that, once monies are deposited into a court account, those monies become public funds. That means that they can no longer be spent by one person. Those funds have to be spent by a vote of the court. And because they are public funds, the organization is charged with coming up with policies and procedures to safeguard those funds. You are operating under those financial procedures to safeguard funds every day. When you write checks and are required to have 2 signatures on those checks, that's a safeguard. When you participate in the 2 people deposits, money going first to the financial secretary and then to the treasurer, that's a safeguard to make sure that our funds are protected. One of the most extensive processes that we have to safeguard the funds is the financial review. The financial reviews are mandated to happen twice a year. They happen during April for the period of October the 1st through March the 31st, and they happen in October for the period of April 1st through September 30th. Remember that the process is not completed until the paperwork actually is mailed. So be careful of the mailing date. The April review is due in the national office by May 1st, and the October review is due in the national office by November 1st. So let's talk a bit about who needs to attend a financial review. We ask that all the court officers attend a financial review. The regent and the vice regent are there largely to observe, to make sure, because they are one of the ones who are in charge of leading the court, they are there to make sure that all the financial processes are being followed. The recording secretary, the financial secretary, and the treasurer, your book officers, are there to have their books reviewed. They are there to answer questions. Should the financial review team have a question about what process was followed or why something happened, the book officers are there to answer those questions. The people actually conducting the financial review consist of the financial review team and the district deputy. The financial review team are members appointed by the court regent. She has the option of appointing that team for her entire term, and they would serve at each financial review, Or she can appoint a new team at the beginning of each financial review, whichever way she would like to do it, but she appoints the team. The district deputy is, of course, appointed by the state regent. The state regent, or if she does not appoint district deputies, usually will send a state representative to conduct that review. We ask that the district deputy and the state representative be present for the review every single time if possible. If that is not possible, then we request that the district deputy or state representative attend at least one of the reviews a year. Okay? I would like to note something very important here. In a pinch, the regent and the vice regent may participate in a review. They are not book officers, and if one of your financial team members happens to be absent, they can fill in. The book officers, however, never participate in a financial review. It is their books that are being reviewed, and that would eliminate our safeguards here if people were reviewing their own books. So they never participate in the review except to answer questions should they arise. So who brings what? The district deputy or the state representative or whoever it is that is conducting the review. Now, let me stop here and say, if the district deputy knows that she cannot attend a review, she should let the state regent know so that the state regent has the option of sending someone else to do that review or empowering the court regent to conduct that review. But whoever is conducting the review needs to bring a few supplies. She needs to have a supply of red pens or pencils. In my case, I prefer a pencil because you can erase if some mistake is made. But red pens or pencils for sure. A ruler, and the ruler is helpful when you are examining the financial secretary's big book. Make sure you stay on the same line. A calculator, the latest edition of the bylaws. Bylaws are changed at every national convention. So you should look at your bylaws to make sure you have the latest edition. The edition that we are using right now is the 2012 edition. But we are getting ready to have a national convention in Billings in 2014, and you will need to look very shortly for the 2014 bylaws. And you will need a financial review form. The financial review forms are mailed out to each court regent, but you can also download them from the Catholic Daughter website. That is www.catholicdaughters.org. Now, the recording secretary should have several things in her bag. She needs to have the latest copy of the standing rules. Standing rules are the particular rules that each court operates under. They are particular to that court. As long as they do not conflict with the bylaws, it is the standing rules that govern the operation of the court. Those should be reviewed at least once a year to see if they need to be updated or changed. She should also have a copy of the budget. The budget can be done every year, or for a regent's term, you could have a 2-year budget. She should have her minutes book, and in the minutes book, all of the motions that have to do with money should be highlighted or underlined, just for ease during the review. And she too should have her copy of the bylaws. In case anything is referenced by the DD, she can mark it in her bylaws and take it back to share with her court. The financial secretary should have her cash book with her. In that cash book, she lists every amount of money or every check that is given to her, along with the date that she receives that money. She should also have the financial secretary's book. In my mind, I always think of it as the big black book that belongs to the financial secretary. But since we no longer provide those from the national office, your book may not be big and black. It'll be whatever you're using from Office Depot or Staples that has the columns and enough room to devote a page to each member. She should also have a receipt book, her receipt book that shows the copies of the receipts she has given to people when they have given her money. And finally, she should have copies of the transmittals that she gives to the treasurer, or a receipt from the treasurer when she has given money over to be deposited. Transmittals can be very simple. It's just a sheet of paper that lists the amount of money and what it was for, and have a place for the court treasurer to sign. Or she can give that money over and the court treasurer gives her a receipt. Whichever is simplest, but she should have some way of showing that the money she has was given to the court treasurer. The treasurer needs to bring all the bank statements and the canceled checks if they are still being given by the bank. Some banks do not give canceled checks anymore, but if they do, she needs to bring those with her. She needs to bring her checkbook along with the stubs for each check that she's written. She needs to bring her ledger, which is the treasurer's actual book where she keeps an account of all of the money that has been taken in and all of the dispersals. And then she needs to bring the bank deposit book or receipts for deposits, and finally, copies of her treasurer's report. Because she has the biggest financial job, you'll notice that she has most of the records to bring with her. Next, the person who is conducting the review, the district deputy or the state rep, or the court regent, if she has been given that permission by the state regent, needs to assign team members to their tasks. For me, the easiest way to do that is to assign 2 members to check the financial secretary's books, and then the DD, or the state rep, and 1 other member of the review team to check the treasurer's books and the secretary's books. It makes sense in my mind for the team to check those books together, because remember, the financial review is a system of checks and balances. So you're always cross-checking to see if one officer is recording the same information that the other officer is recording. Okay, let's look at the actual process for reviewing books. I'm going to start with the financial secretary's books because that process is fairly straightforward. You know that all monies that are going to be deposited by the court treasurer need first to be given to the financial secretary. The financial secretary lists every bit of money that she receives, whether it's cash or a check. She lists that in her cash book. She writes the date that she receives the money, and she writes the purpose for which the money was given to her. It might be a donation. It might be the receipts from a bake sale. It might be dues, but she needs to note each of those things next to the money itself. Now, the review team goes through the entries in the cash book and matches them with the financial secretary's receipts, or her copies of the receipts. This is to ensure that every bit of the money that she was given and that she's written a receipt for is listed in the cash book. Now, the financial secretary has to give that money or transmit that money to the treasurer for deposit. She does that in a couple of ways. She can bring the money to the treasurer, they can count it out together, and then the treasurer can give her a receipt. Or she can write a transmittal. On a sheet of paper, she lists all of the checks and the monies, totals it up, gives it to the treasurer along with the monies, and has the treasurer sign that transmittal. That then becomes the financial secretary's receipt. The treasurer keeps a copy of that transmittal. Either way, those need to be checked to make sure that every bit of money that she has given to the treasurer was received by the treasurer. I'm not implying that there would be any monkey business, but sometimes, you know, you're busy, you are having a bake sale, you put the proceeds in your purse and you forget to give them over. This is just a check to make sure that every bit of money that the financial secretary receives actually is given over for deposit. Then the financial secretary's big black book needs to be checked to ensure that each member has been given credit for the dues that she has paid to the court. Usually, you take your red pen, you look for everything in the cash book that's listed as dues, go to the individual member's page, and check off where that bit of dues was recorded. This way, a member's dues are always accounted for. Some courts also list other things in that treasurer's, in that financial secretary's books. If a member has ordered a membership pin, for example, and paid for it herself, sometimes that's listed on the member's page. If she has made a substantial donation to her court, sometimes that's listed. But what must be listed is each individual's dues record, and that it's checked off to make sure those dues were entered. When it is time to close out those books, when you have checked all the receipts from the treasurer to the financial secretary, when you have made a note of all members whose dues are in arrears so that the financial secretary can contact those members, make sure that you take your red pen or pencil and draw a line at the end of the review period, and then have the members who reviewed those books sign and date the cash book, and so that the people who are going to do the next financial review have no doubt as to where the other financial review, the previous financial review, left off. Okay? Let's look now at reviewing the recording secretary's books. Some of these processes may seem a bit repetitious to you because they have already been completed by the people looking at the financial secretary's books. But that's okay. Remember, we are cross-checking. We are verifying. This way we can absolutely go before the membership and say, as a review team, we reviewed the books and everything is in order. So when you check the recording secretary's books, first thing to do is check the minutes of the meeting against the treasurer's report to ensure that motions were made for all expenditures. Budgets and standing rules will work for this part of the process if a motion was not made. If you find that an expenditure was made without a motion, then that needs to be brought to the attention of the court at a meeting so that that expenditure can be ratified by the court. Because everything needs to have a motion for expenditure. Next, check the treasurer's reports to make sure that every motion that was made was actually followed through and the payment was made. It is really very easy to say, oh, I move that we give Father Smith $50 for his birthday. And everybody says, I second, and let's vote, and that passes. And then we go off, and sometimes that check itself is not made. So that's what you're checking, to make sure that if a motion was made, the payment was actually issued. All monies must have been received by the treasurer from the financial secretary only. If the treasurer, if somebody tries to give the treasurer money, she should say, no, please give it to so-and-so first. She is the financial secretary. In the event of a fundraiser, such as a bake sale or a pancake breakfast, best practice is to have the treasurer and the financial secretary sit together, count those funds together so that receipts can be issued together right at the time of the event. Check that there is a receipt for every transmittal of money from the financial secretary, and check that all deposits are entered into the checkbook. One of the reasons that checkbooks sometimes are off is that deposits, people forget to record the deposits. Then please check to see that all checks are posted in the ledger. This is a good time to check for that two-signer policy, making sure that each check has two signatures on it. It is usually the treasurer and the court regent who sign each check, but we recommend that all 5 officers be on that checking account. In the event that the regent is not available, there will always be somebody to sign a check with the treasurer. So you want to see that all those checks and all the deposits are listed in the ledger. So the ledger should have, for the month of May, for example, all the receipts and all of the expenditures. It is from that ledger that the treasurer will make her treasurer's report to present to the court. You need to cross-check the checkbook with the minutes to ensure that motions have been made to issue checks. And at the end of the month, bank statements must be reconciled with the checkbook and the ledger. You need at that time to address any discrepancies gently. If something is 3 or 4 or 5 cents off, you know that's going to be an innocent mistake in addition or subtraction. So we don't want to grill the treasurer as to what happened here, but we do want to make sure that we gently solve all of these problems. That's why you have your calculator with you, to make sure we have the mistakes and the books are accurate before you sign off on that financial review. Check to see that income, expenditures, and outstanding checks were reported accurately on the treasurer's reports. And while you're reviewing all of this, keep a list of all checks that were paid to the national office, because there's going to be a place on the financial review sheet for you to show checks that were mailed into the national office. This is a sample of a treasurer's report. Your treasurer's report should look very similar to this. You would have your court name and number and the month. You will have the beginning balance, a list of receipts, a list of disbursements, and the balance on hand. That is really important. It is all right to list the balance according to the bank balance. But that might not be the same as what you have on hand, because there might be an outstanding check or two that has not yet cleared. So you need to report to the court the actual balance on hand. Once you have finished reviewing all the treasurer's books, draw a red line at the bottom of the ledger and a red line at the end of the checkbook, at the stub that will show where you stopped checking, and make sure that you date it and that the people who reviewed those books sign them, so that the people, again, who do the next review will know exactly what was checked during the past review. It is important that you keep in mind your retention of records. A folder labeled properly should hold all of your paid invoices and all the receipts given by members who are being reimbursed for something are kept in that folder for a period of 3 years. Canceled checks, if they're still issued, are kept with a bank statement and must be labeled and placed in a file for 7 years. And minutes are a permanent record of each court. as your court becomes older, it's a good idea to take those minutes and archive them somewhere. Usually a diocese will have a place for diocesan archives, because you don't want somebody to be holding on to old records. We have had this in the past where an older member of the court who's no longer an officer is holding on to all of the records. She passes away and her family doesn't know what she has. All of the records have been thrown out and the history of the court has been lost. So make sure that in as much as possible, once you get a big stack of stuff, that you see what you can archive to keep your records safe for future members of the court. Check the tools of the trade for a complete retention of records sheet that will tell you how long you have to keep everything associated with your court. Now, it is important to make sure that your roster at the national office is up to date. So every time you have additions or deletions or transfers, keep those in a folder, but do not forget to send copies of those to the national office. You want to make sure that you're being billed correctly. If you have members that are no longer with you or members who have transferred out, you do not want to continue paying dues on those members, and you will be billed until the national office has either a deletion or a transfer, something to indicate that that person is no longer a member of your court. Send those changes in regularly, but certainly before the cutoff date for each financial review. If you send your changes in too late, you will already be billed because the billing has already gone out. This is just a copy of the financial review page. Each of you will find this. It is mailed to each court before each financial review period. It is also available for downloading on the website. I would like to point out two things for you. What I have highlighted in red, national dues and assessments, that's where you list everything that was paid to national, okay? I would like to highlight something else that's on the review sheet. That is a mass fund. We are no longer encouraging courts to keep mass funds because they become unwieldy. And we are just encouraging that courts do away with their mass funds. A mass fund was initiated a very long time ago, and it usually worked something like this. A member would say, well, when I die, I want a series of masses said for me. So I will pay X amount of money into the mass fund. Well, but what happens if a member passes away before her mass fund is complete? The court is certainly going to pay for her masses anyway. What happens if a member transfers away and you still have her money in the mass fund? These are things that then become kind of a perpetual problem. So we are suggesting that courts no longer hold on to mass funds. But if your court still has one, there is a place for it on the financial review. There is also a place for the 3 members of the review committee to sign, and a place for the district deputy or state rep to sign the review sheet. Now, food for thought. Once the review is complete, it is a good time for all of the officers and the members who are there to get together and look at the amount of money that is in your account. A rule of thumb is we keep enough money in our checking account to operate the court for a year's worth of operating expenses. That's all we need to keep in our court checking account. If you have money, a lot more money than that, that money should be designated. It should be money that you keep for scholarships or money that is for a convention fund. There should be a purpose for keeping money that is above and beyond that year's operating expense. Remember, as Catholic Daughters, we are a charitable organization. We're not in the business of amassing funds, okay? None of us will get to take a vacation on what is in the court fund. So we need to donate that money. We need to make sure that money that we are raising is being used to serve the people of God. So if you're sitting on a lot of money, think of ways that you can put that money to use, because that's why we raise it. We are not, and I'm going to say it again, not an organization of fundraisers. We are an organization of women who raise funds in order to do God's work. So keep in mind that when you look at how much money is in your account, to ensure that your funds are being spent and spent wisely. Now, finally, everybody looks to make sure the financial review form is properly completed, signed by all of the committee members, signed by the district deputy, and mailed. If you will look at the duties of the financial secretary, one of her duties is to ensure that the financial review sheet is mailed in. It is permissible, however, to give the financial review sheet directly to the district deputy, and she can make sure that all of the reviews that she has done are sent in. Because again, this is not a complete process until the national and state office receive copies of your reviews. That's it. I hope the process was simple and easy to follow. In a very short time, this presentation, the slides, will be available on the national website so that you can have them if you want to go through them. This CD will be available to you, and the National Regent will discuss at a later time how those CDs will be made available. But if you have any questions in the meantime, please contact the national office. They can answer your questions, or email me. I will be happy to answer any questions that I can, and you can reach me at olgasamaniego@hotmail.com. Thank you for spending this time with me, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you, and God bless.